The president of Peru, Pedro Castillo, offered a message before the plenary of the Congress addressed to the nation after the approval of the new process of impeachment against him promoted by sectors of the right wing. Russia announces its decision to leave the Council of Europe while accusing NATO and the European Union of manipulating it against Moscow. In the Palestinian-occupied territories, Israeli troops killed 3 young Palestinians during police operations. Hi, this is From the South. I am your news anchor, Diego Martin, from the TeleSUR studios in Havana. We begin with the news. On Tuesday, the president of Peru, Pedro Castillo, offered a message before the plenary of the Congress addressed to the nation after the approval of the new process of impeachment against him promoted by sectors of the right wing. The head of state requested to make use of his constitutional right to address the nation in order to present the achievements made by the executive in his more than 7 months in office. Castillo offered a balance of the progress made by his government in the fight against COVID-19. He also detailed that since the beginning of his government, his objective has been to face most urgent problems in order to improve living conditions of Peruvian people. In Peru, a landslide in the province of Pataz in the department of La Libertad left at least 7 people missing while dozens of homes were buried. The Pataz Regional Councilor Luis Rodriguez reported preliminarily that there were at least 15 houses left underground, and the regional governor Manuel Lempen said that the event covered approximately between 60 and 80 houses. Authorities called an emergency meeting to coordinate search and rescue actions and to detail the magnitude of damage after the landslide. Let's stay in Peru. Fishermen and merchant unions of areas affected by the oil spill that took place 2 months ago in a Repsol installation in front of the Sea of Ventanilla reject the compensation bonus that the company will grant to the victims. The fishermen are demanding the establishment of a dialogue table to reject the bonus of 3,000 soles, equivalent to $802 that the Spanish company will grant to the victims with the approval of Pedro Castillo's government on March 4th. The unions claim that their participation in the negotiations was minimal and that the impact was not equivalent in each of the fishing areas, so the compensation cannot be unique or homogeneous. According to the agency, Repsol reported the leakage of 0.16 barrels of oil in an area of 2.5 square meters. In Venezuela, a meeting of the Special Commission for Dialogue, Peace and Reconciliation of the National Assembly is being held to address issues related to the conciliation and integration of all sectors of the country. The meeting, which is being held at the Miranda Hall of the Federal Legislative Palace in the capital city of Caracas, gathers deputies from different political tendencies represented in the parliament. The President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, leads a meeting in which they discuss relevant issues for the Venezuelan society and its institutionality. At the same time, he called on all the sectors of the country to participate in the reactivation of the National Dialogue Table.
And it's a statement made by the government of the must participate in the dialogue because they also participate in the elections. Some have called to violence, invasion. Some have made some calls. Some have accepted the help from abroad, and others have kept their nationalist characteristics and also have respect for the Constitution. I think that everybody must be incorporated in this dialogue, in this political dialogue. That is the second element mentioned by the President. First, the inclusion of all the Venezuelan society in this process, something that starts today with this extraordinary meeting of the Commission of the National Assembly for the dialogue of peace and reconciliation of the nation.
In his address to the country, the President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, pointed out the need to include all sectors of society in the participation of the talks process.
Be a very inclusive dialogue. It means that everybody will be represented in that dialogue, in that political, social, and economic dialogue. All these sectors of the society of the country should be also represented, all the workers, the cultural people, the civil society, the academy, the students, the fishermen, everybody has the right to have a voice in that process of dialogue.
Jorge Rodriguez spoke about recent relations with the government of Colombia and its behavior with Venezuela.
As you know, last Sunday there were general elections in Colombia. That is a new electoral picture to see the face of Duque in the gardens of the house. It's an anticipation. We have to see the bidding that was given to the Ivan Duque's government. They have some bit behind his back now. It has been very aggressive to the country of Venezuela and the government of Venezuela. And in that sense, after the elections on Sunday, past Sunday, and after the new Congress that they are going to be elected, we will continue to work.
On the same stage, the official spoke about the tutelage relations of certain sectors of the opposition towards the United States. He also expressed that it would be very good for the dialogue to separate such relations from the table.
Face of Duque of the U.S. government, I would have preferred to talk with the owner of the circus. We never had that statement, never had an agenda with that political. Now it's perfectly clear that there is a relation of the opposition of Venezuela. There is clear that there is a relation between the opposition, part of the opposition of Venezuela with the U.S. government. In that sense, for the process of dialogue, it will be very good that they will separate the different relations among the different countries of the world with the ones Venezuela has relations, because now we were looking for an agreement for the future of Venezuela. Thank you very much.
During an interview, the Prime Minister of Belize, John Briceño, was asked if Venezuela could assist the country with the rising fuel prices. So this was his response.
The problem with Venezuela is that the United States have them under sanctions, and that there's absolutely nothing they can do. They can't even move the monies that they have here in Belize to them. So, unfortunately,
you are changing right now.
But we can't do anything. Well, we shall see when that time happens. But even when that happens, Venezuela has already said it's going to take them about a year to be able to get to the production they had before, because a lot of their places are worn and they have to go fix it now.
The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, made an official statement on the progress of the vaccination campaign against COVID-19 and called on the population to receive the booster dose.
People who were adults, we advanced in the children vaccination in the 60%, and we cannot let the guard down. One of the key elements of this stage, in this moment that we are, of high control of coronavirus, is the vaccination. This is one of the key, is to have the booster jab. And I made a call to all the Venezuelan people, to the population. If you haven't got the booster vaccine, you go and you get the vaccine. This is a family matter. The grandmother, the grandfather, the mother, the father, the children, the young people. We have to motivate this. Let's go to get the booster shot. In Venezuela is the first country in the world that we have scientifically decided to get the booster jab 4 months after the main vaccine, the first one.
We're going to take a short break now. Please join us again after this. Hi and welcome back to From the South. Russia announced its decision to leave the Council of Europe while accusing NATO and the European Union of manipulating it against Moscow. The Russian Foreign Ministry confirmed on Tuesday that it had initiated the procedure to leave the Council of Europe, believing that it is a place used by the North Atlantic Treaty Organization to pursue its geopolitical aims. The Russian Foreign Ministry expressed its decision in a letter from the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, delivered this Tuesday to the organization. Now, that ministry made it clear in the document that the withdrawal from this space will not harm the rights and freedoms of Russian citizens, and such a decision is in response to the unprecedented policies and sanctions on Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin today noted that Ukraine is not showing seriousness in seeking solutions to the current situation that would be acceptable to both sides. In a telephone conversation with the head of the European Council, Charles Michel, the Russian leader presented his views on the progress of negotiations between Moscow and Kiev, with the aim of working out agreements that would take into account Russia's demands. Among Moscow's conditions to Kiev, Putin underlined the necessity of recognition of the reunification of Crimea to Russia by the Ukrainian authorities and the establishment of guarantees of military neutrality of that state. He also reiterated that Moscow cannot allow Kiev to acquire nuclear weapons and further militarize itself, which is a danger to the country's security. Putin stressed that the continued expansion of NATO to the east is unacceptable to Russia. Joe Biden will travel to Brussels, Belgium on March 24th to meet with the leaders of the NATO alliance and the European Commission to discuss a Ukraine-Russia conflict. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Biden will discuss ongoing deterrence and defense efforts during the NATO summit and reaffirm the U.S. commitment to its NATO allies. The United States Head of State will also discuss further sanctions on Russia and hopes to seize the occasion to enhance Western unity on behalf of Ukraine. However, Ukraine's top list petitions like establishing a no-fly zone or providing fighter jets seem to be out of reach. The trip falls in line with Biden's top aides visits, including Vice President Kamala Harris and Secretary of State Antony Blinken. This announcement comes after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated his country will not join NATO.
To Russia's unprovoked and unjustified attack on Ukraine.
Now, speaking of that, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, denounced the contradictory position of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization regarding its adhesion. During a meeting of the leaders of the member states of the United Kingdom's Joint Expeditionary Force, Zelensky stated that Ukraine understands that it will not be joining the organization. Zelensky said Ukraine does not currently aspire to the activation of Article 5 of the NATO alliance and collective defense, although he considered that the sky of Ukraine must be protected like that of the alliance. Also, Zelensky urged Western countries to significantly increase their supply of military equipment to Ukraine.
It's clear that Ukraine is not a member of NATO. We understand it. We are adequate people. We have heard for years about open doors, but we have already heard that we won't be able to join it. It's the truth and it's necessary to admit it. I'm glad that our people understand it and counting on themselves and our partners who help us.
Now switching back to Western Europe. In Spain, Catalan teachers hold protests in Barcelona streets and main cities of Catalonia in rejection to recent educational policies by the Generalitat, the education authorities there. 6 days of protests are scheduled to take place in the country until the end of March. Protests began after the President of the Generalitat, Pere Aragonés, and the Minister of Education, Josep González Cambrai, announced on February 10th the early beginning of the 2022-2023 school year and the reduction of school timetable for kindergarten and primary levels. Protesters demanded the resignation of González Cambrai for not consulting teachers to carry out educational changes, including modifications to the curriculum for the new school year. They also claimed better salaries while denouncing lack of sanitary conditions to return to schools. And now tension rises on the Korean Peninsula as U.S. military activity in the area increases in response to alleged missile launches. The USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier began military drills in the Yellow Sea, and other U.S. forces stationed at Osan Air Base in South Korea stepped up military drills amid signs of alleged imminent North Korean tests using its long-range missiles. Mobilizations of United States warships respond to speculation that North Korea may test its largest intercontinental ballistic missile. Pyongyang said the releases were conducted as preparations for a satellite launch. And we have more news coming up after a final short break. Please stay with us. Hello and welcome back. In the occupied territories, Israeli troops killed 3 young Palestinians during different police operations. The first victim, 16-year-old Nader Haitham Rayan, died in an arrest raid outside the northern city of Nablus. The second, Allah Shaham, in his 20s, was killed in Kalandiya, also as a part of a police operation. In the same context, Sanad Salem al-Harbari, 27-year-old, the father of 3 children, was shot dead by a police unit during an arrest activity in the city of Rahat. Authorities said the number of dead Palestinians killed by Israeli forces reaches 20 only this year. Thousands of protesters took to the streets of the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, on Tuesday to denounce the October military coup that plunged the country into further turmoil. Security forces fired tear gas canisters toward the anti-coup protesters, as well as spraying dyed water. Tuesday's rally was the latest in a series of protests over the military takeover that removed the civilian-led transitional government. The takeover upended Sudan's short-lived transition to democratic rule. Pro-democracy protesters are calling for the establishment of a fully civilian government to complete the now stalled democratic transition. The generals, however, insist that they will hand over power only to an elected government. Elections will take place next year.
We are here today as the No to Women's Oppression initiative in solidarity with the resistance committees and to reject the military oppression and the rapes. We reject the military rule, and the people behind the coup will surely fall. We will never be oppressed by the rapes or the detentions.
Somalia failed to complete elections for the lower house of parliament by Tuesday, March 15th, which was the deadline set for appointing candidates. This is another delay in the electoral process that should lead to the appointment of a new president, which has been expected for over a year. The Somali government, which last month extended the deadline for completing the appointment of members of the lower house, had made no new announcements by Tuesday evening. The federal states of Southwest and Galmudug concluded the election of their representatives, but 40 out of the 275 seats in the lower house remain to be filled in 3 states, Jubaland, Ishabelle, and Puntland. The closure of the lower house election is a crucial step towards the election of a new president. The Pritzker Prize, architecture's most prestigious award, was awarded Tuesday to Burkina Faso-born architect Diébedo Francis Kéré, the first African to win the honor in its more than 40 years of history. Kéré, 56 years old, was hailed for his pioneering designs that are sustainable to the earth and its inhabitants in lands of extreme scarcity. Tom Pritzker, chairman of the Hyatt Foundation that sponsors the award, said in a statement, Kéré, a dual citizen of Burkina Faso and Germany, is the 51st recipient of the illustrious prize since it was first awarded in 1979. He is renowned for building schools, health facilities, housing, civic buildings, and public spaces across Africa.
I am speechless. I have a feeling of overwhelming honor, but also a sense of responsibility. I simply feel honored. That is unexpected. You know, it was never in my dream. You know, even my dream full of fantasy, I never thought that this work that I was doing, you know, as a duty to my people that has paved my career would ever be connected to the Presca Foundation. So I feel I am the happiest man on the planet.
We've come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at TeleSUR English. You can also join us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Dio Martin. Thanks for watching.